Hey YouTube, Todd back with another video. So I thought I would do a complete walkthrough of my orchestral template. I know I just posted a video last week on how to build an orchestral template. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you exactly what I went with, and I finished off the template for the most part. I'm sure I'm going to make some adjustments because I know I didn't complete the template when we did the last video. I added some new stuff, and I put the east-west stuff in there. So I thought we'd go over it today, and I'll kind of tell you why I did what I did. Because I just wanted to, I've been working on this for probably the last week. Ever since I started building it out, I kept going and started, trying to finish it. And I just wanted to start creating some music again because I've been down for so while. And it's always good when you build a template out to go test it, to go see what you built works. So I've been doing that. But anyway, let's get started, and I'll start going an overview here and showing you what I did. So this is kind of pretty much the same as that video, but here's what I was talking about, the reference tracks. I included these tracks here. I put them in red just because that just signifies for me that, it's something different, because like I have these red. So these are some tracks that I use a lot. Sometimes I put new tracks or different tracks, but right now these are my kind of go-to. I got Alan Silvestri's, this is the first track off Contact. I got the logo from Back to the Future score. The reason I chose this one is because it has brass lines, and it's very, very, there's not a lot of orchestra stuff. It's just kind of solo horn, so I can kind of get that horn sound if I want it. I got Princess Leia's theme, Tales of a Jedi Knight, Marty's Letter, another Back to the Future, and then the theme from Jurassic Park, just because of the string sounds and stuff. So I just reference these tracks from time to time just to see if I'm hitting it or if my parts sound realistic, Well, this is what a solo horn kind of sounds like. Am I close to it? So those are just reference tracks, and that's what I was talking about. And when you do this, make sure you mute them, because if you don't, they'll all play at once when you're trying to write and play your track. They'll mess you up. So just keep it, just create a folder, put them up here, and then just, if you want to know how to do that, you go to File and Import Audio File. And I think within Cubase, they have to be MP3s and stuff like that. They don't do Apple format, which is, I think, MPA or whatever, M4s, or whatever the Apple standard is when you import them into iTunes. You got to convert it to MP3s or whatever. So just a little tip. Alright, so let's get started with the template. As you can see, I think this is pretty much similar to how it was when I created it, but I think I had it differently. So I have my piano sketch, and what I like to use for this is where I'll, like if I'm just starting a tune, don't know what I'm going to do, I'll just start messing around on the piano, and I put that. So I don't do, sometimes I do it to a click, sometimes I don't, so I don't worry about all that stuff. This is where I'm going to sketch stuff out. Like, oh, there's a cool idea, let's just sketch it so I have it. I have it down, and I can edit it later. I'm trying some new things. I'm going to try to do is maybe just hit the record button and just start playing and let it record, and then pick the best moments and create a track out of it. That's something I'm going to try to push myself into doing, because typically I just kind of write like 8 bars or I write 16 bars, and I just start going from there. But I have wrote some tracks, like I had an A section, B section, like that, sketched out on piano, and it helped me out so much more to keep focused and stay on track on what I was supposed to be writing. So I got my A section, and the reason I have like an A section track and B section is because when I start building out the track, this is like I can go back for A section stuff and start playing it out, and I can monkey with it, stuff like that. So it's just kind of just keeping it all separate. And then I got the B section, and then ideas track. The idea is like, let's test out an idea. So maybe I'll play the track and just start playing something on the piano and see if it works, like if it sounds good. So that's what the idea track is. It's just for me to put stuff down, just see if it works. So those tracks always stay enabled at all times. All right, so let's move into the woodwinds. I think the woodwinds is pretty much the same, except the added of east-west. All right, so let's start with Cinesamples. Let me put this up here just a little bit. We get some more room. All right, so it's basically the same as when I started building it in the last video. So I got my piccolos. I put the legatos in there. I don't think I had the legato tracks in there when we built this out. I got the eighths, quarters, halves, the trills, half steps, whole step trills. like I said, I think I had a few questions in the last video. Is what articulation should you pick, stuff like that. I thought I explained it pretty well, but I can explain it again. I typically just tend to pick the most common articulations that I would use. A good tip is, like I said, is go back to your old pieces and find out what articulations you always use all the time in all your tracks, and kind of narrow it down from there. But with this approach, with an instrument track and be able to add tracks all the time, it's so much easier to go back to the library and go, hey, I need a different color or whatever this, and you can just add it to your template. So, but I always have just my standard stuff, my go-to, because the whole reason of a template is just to make your life simpler and easy to start writing, so you don't have to think about things. So I got my piccolos, flutes, oboes, standard stuff. And then I did include the ensemble articulations for this unison and octaves. And then I did do the ensemble chords here. Sometimes what I like to do is I'll put those ensemble chords with the track, not just by itself, but just to fill out the template, to give it more, just to fill out more, just make it sound a little bit better. And I might turn the volume down on that so they're not so prominent. But that's what I'll use that track for. Not always, but sometimes, just if the track calls for it. And so that's Cinewinds Core. So this is Cinewinds Pro, and what Cinewinds Pro is kind of just added instruments that that are just typically not used all the time, and I guess in the orchestra, because like your core, these are your core instruments that that are always used: piccolo, flutes, oboes, and clarinets and bassoons. But so these are just more options, more colors. So alto flute, bass flute, English horns, B-flat clarinet, bass clarinet, because you just never know a piece that you're working on might call for this different type of color. Bass clarinet, contrabass, and contrabassoon. I got those there. And then I also included the runs. So these runs are from Hollywood Winds from Cinesamples. I typically not to like to use these all the time, to do the John Williams, because these things are so easy. You just press one button, it's all the time, and people get carried away with them. And it just sounds fake, just makes you, it just diminishes your track right away. So what I typically like to do with these things is, like, if I'm going into a build-up and then like a crescendo, I'll put those in the background, just kind of emphasize a part, because that's the way John Williams does it. He emphasizes parts. But I guess if you're going to go for that John Williams thing, I probably wouldn't use these runs patches. I'd probably program it out and use an actual instrument to do it. Because these things are pretty much, it's just you put down a key and it just runs through that. So, it's, everybody has it and it sounds the same. So if you want to be unique and make it your own, I would probably program it out. Runs is a difficult thing. I'm still learning, but I've learned a lot just from Mike Verda. And use them to emphasize a part. Because if you listen to John Williams, it's always going into something that he'll use those runs. It's not just like doing a run for a run's sake. So I hope that helps you out. They're just very tricky. And like those type of libraries and those one key things that runs the scale, they're misused all the time. And when you hear them, you're just like, ugh, they're cringeworthy. All right. So this is East-West. I didn't have this when we built the template out before. So kind of how I approach to East-West stuff. I think the woodwinds and brass don't include a lot of articulations like the strings, and we'll get to that later. But so I just, like I said, I just use the basic patches that I would use. I typically tend to go for Cinewinds right now, since they did their 1.3 update. I think it was beginning of this year or the end of last year. But I used to use Berlin Woodwinds, which I think I might add to the template. Just not sure. I'm really liking the Cinewinds right now since they've updated them. So I just got the... so this is East-West Hollywood Orchestra. I got the piccolo, flutes too. The standards like I had in Cinewinds. And they're just... some of the instruments had more articulations than some other ones. As you can see, like Mercado... like didn't have it in the piccolo, vice versa. But I have the legatos and staccatos and marcatos. That's basically all you really need for woodwinds. I mean, because they're going to be playing melody lines, or they're going to do staccato or marcato lines, for chord stuff. So that's pretty much all you need. If you're going to do, I don't know if they have a sustains patch, but some of these did have runs, and how you find the runs patch in Hollywood Orchestra, just go to the key switch folder, and then you'll see runs. And that's where I got that from. So another thing, as you can see, is I just kept this very simple with my labeling. Because I know East West usually includes a lot in their tracks. I just want to know exactly what articulation that is. Is it a legato patch? Is it a staccato? I don't need all that stuff, because when I'm composing, I just need to know what articulation it is. So that's kind of what I did, and to make it simple for me. Because the reason I did that, because after doing this so long and having a couple of templates that I'd put the whole track, it gets really confusing. So that's just something I've stumbled on after doing it for so long. All right, so that concludes woodwinds. All right, let's move on to brass. So the brass, I have Cinebrass Core and Cinebrass Pro, and it's just basically everything out of the individual articulations folders. I put them all in here because I tend to use a lot of, for brass, I tend to use a lot of them, because brass parts, to get it exactly right, especially when you're mocking stuff up, you know, because sometimes you might just need an eighth note sound, or you need the quarters or half, you know what I'm saying? So like to get that really realistic sound, instead of just using a true legato or sustained patch, because sometimes you want to hit that staccato, like if it's like dun 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 dun, you know, like something like that. You can get those little staccato notes. It could be an eighth note, it could be a quarter note. It just makes it sound so much more realistic. It's a lot of programming. It could take a lot of time, but it's so worth the effort in the long run for your track or for your mock-up to sound really good. So I have the trumpets ensemble, you know, stuff. I think the order is going to get rearranged a little bit. Like I said, I haven't really composed a lot. I'm working on a composition right now to kind of get the feel of how this template works, and it might change, you know, here and there. It's like this is so much like a pedal board for a guitar player. Like you have all your pedals laid out when you build it out. Oh, it looks so great. But when you actually go down to start playing, you're like, you know what, that pedal just doesn't work there, because I have to reach over here and do. Same thing with this. If you're a guitar player, I'm sure you know, you're like, oh yeah, dude, I know exactly what you're talking about. So so this stuff is very interchangeable. You know, you can move stuff around. Don't feel, you know, like you can't do that. You can totally do it. So I got the trumpet solos, and I like to keep solo and ensemble, the instruments together. But right now I think I just have it the way I built it, because I just went down from every library. So I might put the horn solos up here, even if it's Cinebrass Pro. And that's why I labeled it CBC and CBP. So when I'm actually composing, I know, okay, that's a Cinebrass Pro patch, that's a Cinebrass Core patch. So that's why I did that. All right. So I did include the full ensemble effects, which I don't really use that much, but you just never know when you're going to need it, like especially if you're doing a film score or something. You just never know. Hey, I need like a really weird, you know, effects for horns. Hey, they have it in that one. I can use it. You just never know, especially if you're a film composer. That's why a template is crucial. And then I got the Monster Low Brass patches in there. So that's Cinesamples. So I got East-West. I might include sample modeling, and I have a couple other brass libraries, but these are my go-to, especially East-West, since I got Hollywood Orchestra a few months ago. I really love the sound. It's so much similar to Cinesamples, but there's just the programming wise, when like I showed you guys the expression maps and all that stuff. I might go back to some of my older videos and you can see that. Like I said, I haven't even set up expression maps yet for my template, so you know, we're not there yet because I just have this all as individual articulations. To use expression maps, those are the ones that are kind of key switch. So that's how I was using it before, but I'm going to try this approach and see how well this works. Because I tend to be a composer that writes each part out, and I like having the separate articulations. So I got the 2 French horns, 6 French horns, solo French horns, the trumpet, you know, basic stuff. So I just used a very simple, the go-to articulations for this. I'm probably going to organize, put the solo French horns first, and then 2 and 6, you know, kind of just so it's kind of in my mind, because you know, 1 horn, 2 horns, 6 horns makes sense. And then actually within Orchestral or Hollywood Orchestra brass, they have a low brass too. So I just got those 2 patches there, which I've never really used as much, but I'm gonna try them out. So that does it for East-West. So that's brass. So then let's go to percussion. So this is when I start implementing newer libraries than just Cinesamples and East-West. I have some Spitfire here, which I'll probably add some more stuff But, you know, right now this template is my go-to instruments that I use all the time. I know that, hey, with the stuff I got right here, I can write a track. I could bang out a track easily. I don't have to think about it. I just got what I need. So we got Cineperc, and I use, if you have Cineperc or if you do get Cineperc, they used to be 4 separate libraries, but now they have it all in one. And when you buy it, it's all separated into folders. So I use all Orchestral, the Orchestral folder. I have them all those patches because I tend to use those a lot to add different colors. I've been trying to branch out and use different colors that I would never normally use. Like one time I think I used xylophones with marimba for doing chord parts. It made a great color to this track. Like I just put it in the background where you couldn't really hear it, but it just made it awesome. Made the track sound a lot cooler and brought a little more color to the track. So don't be afraid to put little stuff like that and maybe turn the volume down or, you know, bring the velocities down so it's sitting in the track. You wouldn't notice it unless you soloed it, but it just brings in some added color to it. It's a beautiful thing. So I have all that. I have the timpani, bass drum, snare, you know, concert toms and celeste and all that stuff. Mark trees. Like I never used to use mark trees or bell trees in my templates. And one time I had a track that I wrote. You can find on my YouTube. It's Whispering Forest. And when I got my track, I sent it to the VI Control guys on Discord. And, you know, like that, it's calling for a mark tree. Do you have a patch? I was like, what's a mark tree? And now I know what it is. And I was like, dude, that made it so much better, made the track so much better. So go, if you want to, go listen to that track where you can hear it, which was the first time I ever used the mark tree. So now it's in my template. So yeah, and then this is right here. These ones right through here is part of their, it was part of their Epic. It was called Epic, Cineperc Epic. So you can find that in the Epic folders, Tychos, Certos, Rototoms, you know, stuff like that. And then they have monster low hits and swooshers, which are pretty cool. I typically use them sometimes, but not all the time. My go-to for that kind of drums, like epic drum, is Hans Zimmer percussion, which we'll get to. So East-West, like I said, I just got this a few months ago, so I'm still learning the library. I'm pretty familiar with Cinesamples, but there's a few things in the East-West orchestral library or Hollywood Orchestral that I found that I actually like more than Cinesamples. I believe it was the Glockenspiel and the Celeste in Hollywood Orchestra was really nice and it sounded really good. Like, because I think Cinesamples is very up front in your face. So it just depends on what you're going for, and that's why I have it's like, well, why do you have 2 different, you know, Glocks from 2? Like, if you just have one, well, you just never know what articulation or from this library is going to work with the track that you're working on. So that's why it's good to have a variety. You know, like I said, if you're a guitar player, it's just like a guitar pedal. Why do you have 2 different delay pedals? Well, because one sounds this way and another one sounds that way. So it's just the way the sound or what you're looking for, the color that you're looking for the track that you're writing. All right, I'm getting long-winded here. So we got the timpanis. I think I used everything from their orchestral part of East-West. But like I said, I'm probably going to go through and start taking some of this stuff out, but I don't know this library very well, so I'm going to start experimenting with it and seeing which patches I like and which might go to, because I don't think I'm going to use, like, you know, 5 different or whatever, how many snares I got here. But it's great to have the different sounds because, you know, they are different. They have Ludwigs, Pearl, snares, and then same with, like, if you look here, with their cymbals. They have a lot more cymbals than Cinesamples did. They only, I think, included one suspend cymbal. So it's just great because, like, the pasty and the pasty one right here, you can hear that in a lot of tracks. Let me upload, or let me turn this one on. And here I'm going to show you what I have noticed. I got a comment on the last video, the how to build an orchestral template. Have I noticed any you know, performance issues because I'm using external drives, hard drives, and they're not SSD drives, which my old system, my slave computer, they're all SSD drives that I have my sample libraries. And I have noticed some performance issues with East-West libraries for, like, loading and disabling. As you notice, it took a little bit more. It's more for the strings, but I have noticed a little bit because, like, on my my slave machine, my old Mac, they would just load up really quickly because they're on SSD drives. But I am looking into getting a little cradle that I can put my SSDs, or I might look into I forgot what it's called. It's you know, you can put four drives together and run them off one. So I might do that as well in the future and run it through Thunderbolt. We'll see. But so far, it hasn't been too much of a problem. Like I said, I haven't used this template a lot to compose, so it might slow me down and I might find it annoying. But right now, I think I can work with it. All right, so we got crowtails, finger cymbals. Another thing, crowtails, I think that was something I never used before. Never had a template, but I think I used it in a track and I loved them, so I added them. And there's the mark trees from that. Pretty similar to the Synths samples as far as articulations or instruments that are included. So here we go to Spitfire. This I talked about earlier. So this is a Hans Zimmer percussion. I use the Junkie XL mixes. And I have these broken out into individual articulations. I think they include that. But like, if you don't want all these tracks, they do have just the one track with the key switches. You know, so if you just want bucket hits, they got all these in one patch. So, you know, if you don't want to have a lot of, if you're a person that doesn't like a lot of tracks. But I just like to break it out because I never know when I'm going to go to. I just need that patch. And then I have right here, this is from Albion 2, the sub hits. I just like it. It just has a really good sound. So I just always stick that in my template because I never know when I'm going to use a sub hit. So yeah, that's from Albion 2. I do have Albion 1, which, like, you know, like I said, I might start adding a few different libraries here and there, piecemealing it together and adding some articulations from Albion and, you know, stuff like that. Because I have damage and all that stuff. But for right now, these are my go-to, my basic. Like, I can knock a track out with just this stuff right here. So, you know, and like I said, a template's always evolving. Don't be afraid to take things out, put things in. That's what it's for. Because just like a composer, your style is going to change. The way you write changes. Well, so is your template. It's going to change with you. And that's why I love this approach by using instrument tracks. It's so flexible. I could just go in, take it out, pull in, put a new one in. And I don't have to worry about it. All right, so now we go into harps. I think when I built out this template in the last video was I had harps and pianos together. Well, I noticed when I was writing before, like, I didn't like that. That was just the way I did it. So I separated the two. And I also, East West was having a sale, I think last week for their summer sale, and I picked up East West Solo Harp. And I haven't played with it a lot, so I don't really have a lot to say about it because I haven't really used it. But I just needed a different sound, something, you know, because I had Cineharp and Spitfire Harp. The Cineharp is pretty old. I think Cinesamples that's going to be their new thing that they've been teasing. So if you've been paying attention to Cinesamples, I think it's going to be a harp. I hope it's going to be a harp because I love this harp. I go to it all the time, but it's pretty dated. And the Spitfire one, I really love this patch. Let me upload it here. So, but the thing I've found, like, some tracks Spitfire harp will work, and some tracks it just will not. It's just because it's too roomy. And then the Cineharp works really well. I love the Cineharp one. So let me get into that. So you can tell that they're very different sounding. Let me go to. So I'm still learning this one. We'll just do this. Let's see. So here you go again. Now, as you can see, you saw how those other contact instruments loaded up pretty fast, and they're all on the same drive, an external drive that I have. So as you can see the difference. So this one sounds a little more, you know, it's not so bright. It's kind of, you know, darker, I think. Yeah. But good. You just never know when you can use that for a track compared to those other ones. So those are my harps right now. And like I said, I hope Cinesamples is going to release a new harp library. They need to, because this one's pretty old. All right, let's move on to pianos. So as you can see, pianos, I have a variety, and the reason I do that is because of the colors. You just never know what pianos might work for this track and that track, because a lot of them don't work all the time. You know, it could be like if you have just one piano, I mean, you could probably get it to work with EQs, and, you know, you can go in there and mess with it. But I just like to have different ones because they have different sounds. So the Cinematic Studio piano, which is the same thing as I have up here, I have it in the template because, you know, if I want to use that. I have the Giant, Alicia Keys, the Maverick, the Grandeur, and Gentleman. Those are all from the Complete series of Native Instruments. You get, if you buy Complete, like whatever they're on now, 12, they'll come with that. Really love the Giant. Love the Gentleman, and I've been using the Grandeur a lot. I like this one too. Alicia Keys, I saw it there in my contact library. I was like, well, let's give it a shot and let's start using it because it has a pretty cool sound. Let me get this one enabled here. So it's a little more poppy, I think, but you just never know when you, like, if you're doing a trailer or something, that piano might work. Put some reverb on it, and you know. But I want to talk about this one. I think I've talked about this in the past because this piano right here cost me $3 from Spitfire. All you have to do is donate. This is from their labs, and it just has a sound to it, and I use it a lot. So if you do not have this in your template or you do not own this, go to Spitfire Labs on their website and donate. I think it's like $3 to UNICEF. Pick this up. It's a steal. I mean, it's a great piano, and they do offer I think $120, $119 upgraded version that has more mic positions and different articulations. But I'm just saying, for $3, this piano it's amazing. So that's Spitfire Labs. Okay, so this stuff here, this is from East West Platinum Pianos. I think there's 4 pianos that they include, but I just did the 3 because I typically tend to use just these 3 pianos. Typically Steinway and the Bergstein. So I included those in the template because I'm starting to use these a little bit more. Like, I used to be a Cinesample guy. That's all I would use, and I think I would use Spitfire too. But I actually, when I first started a long time ago, like 2009, I bought this library. I actually have the box. It's like a huge box that it came in with all the CDs. And I remember it taking, when I first got it, because it's like over 400 gigabytes of data off all the CDs, so there's like 15 of them. It took like a whole day just to upload it to my computer. But I started with East-West stuff. But the reason I dropped East-West is because Play just did not work, and Contact works so much better. So I got away from East-West for a while. But like I said, I haven't had a lot of issues with East-West, especially if you need an SSD drive, period. If you have East-West libraries, you have to have an SSD. They load up just like that. So, like I said, I don't have one currently. That's all on my slave machine. So like I said, maybe in the future I'm going to run a hybrid. All East-West stuff will be on the slave, and then everything else will be on the main machine. But I'm looking at like those cradles or the other thing. But we'll see. Anyway. So let's move on to strings. We still have a lot more to go here. So I got the Cinesamples, and I just use pretty much every individual articulation they have because I tend to use, for strings you need a little bit more articulations because strings are a little more, you know, you get a lot more different sounds, and it's just, you know, compared to your brass and woodwinds, the strings, you know, just have so much more detail and more colors that you can get out of them. So I use pretty much everything that they offer. So I got Cinestrings Core, and they just released an update. They teased it, I think July 31st, so if you're watching this video. So it should be showing up in our library soon, so I'm really excited to see what the update's going to do. I know a lot of people have a lot of issues with Cinestrings. They find a lot of, like, you know, notes that are bad, or, you know, just sound-wise. There's a lot of things that people don't like about it. It's not very clean. I tend to like them. I sometimes I don't use them a lot, but I'm trying to use them more. I did not include full ensemble patches, but I do have the runs. So this is Cinestrings runs. This is just kind of like Hollywood Winds, you know, the same kind of, you know, doing little run things. I typically don't use these a lot, but I want to. I want to start trying to do them. So I might use the Hollywood Winds, you know, the woodwind runs with the string runs together. But I've tried that sometimes, and it just doesn't work. But like I said, I would use these for going into a crescendo or to emphasize a part. But I just added them in here because I want to try to start using them a little bit more. So that's Cinesamples stuff. So then I added this Cinematic Studio Strings. This library is really great. If you love, I mean, if you're going for that film sound, these things sound great. So let me open so you guys can see. So how I did this, if you go here, go down here. So the way that they have their library when it comes, this is what you're going to see. They just have one file here, but how I, separated these into individual articulations, all I did was just switch these key switches just duplicate the track. Okay, select this key switch, and there you go. Now you have your individual articulation. So they don't offer individual articulation patches within this library. So that's how I did that, if you want to know. But yeah, I mean, this has a great sound. If you're looking for that film score stuff, that kind of sound, or if you're getting into film scoring and you don't have very many string libraries, definitely pick this one up. I believe this company is going to have a whole, every part of the orchestra. They're going to have percussion, brass, woodwinds, and strings. The Cinematic Studio piano is by the same company. So they have the piano and the strings right now. I think the other parts of the orchestra libraries are supposed to come out this year or sometime. So I'm really looking forward to it, and those might be my new libraries, my new go-to libraries in the future, because I really love this library. But like I said, sometimes these strings don't work with the track that I'm working on. So I also have a couple other string libraries. I have Music Sampling's soaring strings, which I'll probably add to this template, but I don't have them in right now, because I was just going for my go-to stuff. All right, so here's East-West. So I know I had a question about this. I'm going to show you how long these patches take, so you guys can, like I said, the other ones, that one wasn't too bad. But, so what I wanted to concentrate on here, because we didn't go through this when we built it. Let me go through here. So people ask, like, well, what articulation should you use East-West? Because if you look here, if you go to First Violins, you have all these folders and all these patches to choose from. So what I did is I just went to Template Pro folder, and I just use these, for right now, because these are your basic go-to patches. But there is some patches in here that you might want to use, like your effects stuff or your Bartok pizzicato. So if you want to get, very specific, that's where you can find that stuff and just add them into your template. Because I know I did that with second violins. I did, where is it at? I did right here. I did second violins flatandos. I love flatando patches. I got that from Albion 2. They have a great flatando patch, so I added that in my template here, East-West, and I really like theirs as well. But I could see how someone can, like me. Look at all these patches. That's insane. So if you're just getting started with this library and it's very overwhelming, just start with this folder, and I think these will get you by. But like I said, you can eventually go in and add the ones that you need. So that's what I did. And as you can see, my track listing looks a little bit different from this. Pretty similar. I kind of just got rid of all that extra stuff. I don't need that. I just need to know what the articulation is to keep it simple, So that's how I chose my strings for East-West Hollywood Orchestra. I just use that folder for right now. And like I said, if I need different articulations, I could just go add a new instrument track, add it to the template, it's done. Or if I'm working on a track, I can add it to that track that I'm currently working on. So that's what I used. I just used those because I'm pretty sure I'm going to go in here after a while after using this template and start axing some of these articulations. I probably won't use them. So yeah, that's what I got for East-West Hollywood Orchestra strings. Very simple. So that concludes our string section. So I got some folders here. I got ethnic. The reason I included ethnic is because I just purchased a while ago East-West Silk. So I'm trying to branch out and start including different colors in my templates and my songs and stuff. You just never know when you can use an instrument. So I used every instrument that they offer in ethnic, or silk, I should say. And they're all right here. And then I also, in Cinewinds Pro, they have some other instruments that weren't like typical orchestral instruments, like the Irish flute, penny whistle, and I included those in my ethnic folder just because they might not be ethnic instruments per se, but I think they kind of are, because like Baroque flute, soprano, border pipe, that's all like different countries out of the, so I just included them in there. So yeah, so there's my ethnic folder. So here's my choir. Choir is very basic. I'm using Voxos right now. I typically like it. I'm not a big choir person. I don't write a lot of tracks with choir, but sometimes you need it. And for what I need, this library works very well. I typically use the phrase builder. I use the chord tracks. The chords is similar to the Cinewinds and Cinebrass. Like you just hit one note, that will play you a C major chord or minor chord, depending on where you play it on the keyboard. So I'll use those to layer, and that's about it. And it's got the stabs, screams, and clusters and textures, which I don't really use. But yeah, that's what I would use it for. I'm not a big choir person. I don't write a lot of tracks with choir in them, so I just have that. I do have a couple other libraries for choir. I just never use them. I had it in my template before. I just never used them, so it's just taking up space. So got rid of them. All right, so let's go into my synths. Very simple. I found myself when I was writing a lot of tracks with synth stuff, I use Omnisphere, and I want to show something really quick. You might not be familiar. This is something I learned recently, maybe 6 months ago. And what I have here, I just have 5 different instances of Omnisphere going right here, so I can use different patches. And that's why I do that. And I can always add more if I need to add more. But what I want to show you to, and what I direct you to, if you have Omnisphere, they have a lot of great patches, but there's some people out there that write patches for Omnisphere that you can buy. And the guy's called The Unfinished. If you're not familiar with him, definitely go check him out. So I have a couple of his patch libraries right here, and they have some really great sounds. So you're getting more out of Omnisphere. He goes in and creates patches, himself, and sells them, which is awesome. So you're getting more life out of Omnisphere. If you find, but that's the beauty of Omnisphere. If you really get into it, you can create your own patches. I haven't had time, and I just don't want to. It's so much to learn. I'm sure I could do it if I dedicate myself. I mess around sometimes and take the default patch and create it a little bit different for me. But I'm just not one of those people. But so that's so if you're not familiar with The Unfinished, definitely go check out The Unfinished and check out these. He's got other patches library for other different instruments. I think he's got Massive, Zebra, all that stuff. Just go to his site and you can find them and buy them. They're pretty reasonably priced too. So that's all right now what I got for synths, because I use Omnisphere. I just love Omnisphere, and that's pretty much the only synth other than what comes with Cubase. So I typically gravitate towards that. So then we come to my MISC folder. So this is kind of where stuff that I just doesn't fit. So I got Contact loaded up. And the reason for this is I have some Contact libraries that I'll use from time to time, but I don't want them in my template. It just depends on what kind of a track I'm writing. So if I want, let's say, if I'm going to use Axe & Strikes or Damage or Rise and Hit or Evolve tracks, stuff like that, and Vocalese and the stuff from Heaviosity, that I typically wouldn't use all the time, and I don't know what I would use because I don't have my go-to patches yet for these libraries. So I just have an empty Contact instance so I can put them in. And I also have let me pull it up here. Hybrid 2, Daniel James. I have both of his libraries, Project Alpha, Project Bravo. So they're great. I think they were on sale recently. So yeah, because I might not use those patches all the time, so I'm not gonna keep it in the template, but I can just go here and add it into my empty instance of Contact, and there you go, I have it. So that's what that MISC folder is. Or if there's maybe something that I find that I like that just doesn't fit in one of these folders, I can just pop it in there. So that's what that is. So there you go. There's my template in a nutshell. So what I want to focus on now is the routing, because I know we started this in the last video, but I want to show you how I have it. The routing is not finished yet, per se. I still have to put reverbs, but I'm thinking what I have right now might be just enough. So let me get in here and just enable a track, because right now you're not going to see it. So right here. So I actually do have a reverb on this track, and I think I kind of explained this before. So what I'm doing here, sometimes I'm using spaces, and sometimes spaces, depending on what hall you use, they have actual individual instruments. So let me show you real quick. I think we covered this before, but I just want to go into it now. So this is Woodwind. So we'd go to the Woodwinds folder. So this is it for all woodwinds. So what I'm using here for this one is I'm using the South California Hall Winds front reverb. So, but what I have on the bus channel of my woodwinds channel here, I have the rear. So what that does is, let me play this patch. Hold on. Oh, I gotta select the patch here. There we go. It has both tails. It has the front reflection and the rear reflection. So let me take those off and just play you the patch. It's got a little tail because if you actually look on, I think we covered this a little bit, but I'll just recap. I actually have the reverb on that comes, I just have everything default on Cinewinds. So it's got a little bit, and you're going to find that with most libraries. They're going to have some reverb built into it. So let me just start adding, so let me add this one that's actually on the instrument. So there you go, you can hear that tail. So let's add the rear. So that was front. So now we're going to add the rear reflection. Now you get, even bigger. Like I said, I haven't really composed too much yet with this system. This is kind of a new approach that I'm doing for reverbs, but this might be a little too much. It might be too wet on the reverb channels. We'll have to see. I'm thinking like staccato strings and stuff. This reverb tails and stuff might get in the way. So that's what I have for that woodwind instrument, and I have all of them exactly the same, set up that way. But let me go into, so brass, I'll have, so I just have the brass, the rear, etc., etc. That's how I have this laid out right now. This is a new approach. This is something I'm testing. I don't know if it's going to work. But for strings, I think the tail is a little bit, it's 3.3 seconds. So that's pretty wet, and that's a long tail. I think most film score recordings is only like 1.5. So like I said, I might adjust this. I might try some new reverbs, but these are just my go-to that I like. So we'll see. So that's how I have, all this laid out. I have all my instruments, and then they go to whatever bus it is. I have it all laid out just like I do on my folders here. So let me show you how I have it. So I have them on group tracks, which I have turned off. You can do that in Cubase. So I have them all right here. And I color code these tracks, the group tracks, exactly like my folders. So I know, so I know exactly what it is. And so I just, turn that off so I don't ever see it. And that's how I have it. So I have my instruments going to whatever bus, So then on my stereo output bus, here's what I include. I have an L1. Like I said, when I was building the template, I didn't have my wave stuff on here, so now I do. And I typically will use this setting here, 16-bit Final Master. And that usually sounds pretty good. And then I have a VBC rack from Slate. It's just the red glue. I just tend to like that one. And then I have Slate's virtual tape machine, just to add some analog, kind of warmth to the track. I don't mess with any of this. It's just default. Sometimes you can go in here and push the output up, to give it a little bit more. But I typically just tend to use it, standard. And then this is something that I was using before. I think I mentioned it. And this is just basically the same. I got the limit on, and I just use the more room setting. I find that it adds a little more depth to the tracks. All this stuff might be overkill, but I tend to like it, and it gives a little bit more oomph to the tracks, which in today's scene, that's what you kind of need. Loud, which I don't really agree with that, but hey, you got to do what we got to do. And I think I mentioned this before, but as you can see, my routing, how I have it routing, I have like these tracks, and this is the same for every instrument, brass, woodwinds, all of them. I have that going this way, so I don't have it, going out. Let me see. Whoops, wrong one. I don't have it going out. I just have it going out from up here. So that's how I have it. Like I said, I like to keep things very simple. All right, I think that's the template in a nutshell. I hope this was very helpful. I hope you guys found a lot of things in it, and to see how I know we did most of this in the last video, but I wanted to show you because I did tweak some things and add some things and move stuff around, and I decided on some other things. I know I said in the last video I'm not a big folder person. Well, the way I did it is I just did them by sample libraries, and I think that's going to work really great. Since I'm using the iPad Mini with the Metasystems app that I got. So I have all my key commands there. So when I'm actually writing tracks, I can hide all these. Just show. Well, I don't have any data right now. So show tracks with data. Show all tracks. I can use that, and the tracks that I'm not using will go away. So I think this approach is going to work, and like I said, I'm going to test it, write some tracks, see what works, what doesn't. That's a good way to test your template. Just give it a shot and go write something, and you're going to find things that you don't like or the way you put stuff. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please put them down in the comment section. Also, I'm thinking about starting to do some VE Pro videos, so please go in the comments and put down what you want to see. If there's anything you're curious about because you're looking to that approach, let me know, and I could probably do a video about it. Like I said, I'm probably going to do a hybrid approach in the future. Oh, also, I don't think I mentioned this, but I added this up here, and how you do that's a to show your time stamp. If you're wondering how to do that, I think it's right here, time display. Just click that, and it will add that to your top. So if you're wanting to know how I did that. But anyway, I hope I didn't bore you. I hope this was great. I hope you got a lot of information. Hope this helps. Thanks for watching. Thanks to everybody subscribing. If this is your first time watching, please hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, please like it to let me know that you like this content, and so I know to do this type of stuff in the future. And as always, you can follow me up on Twitter. It's a great place to communicate with me. Definitely if you have questions or if you want to get my attention, you can hit me up on Twitter. It's just Todd K. Edwards. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you everyone on the next video.